Lovely starshine lights my way to bed. Magic rainbows glisten in my head. Just like a child I live in Wonderland. All my dreams are coming true. Heavy shackles used to hold me down. Now my feet don't even reach the ground. Just like a prisoner when his sentence ends. All my dreams are coming true. I think I'll go fly into the
Welcome
sky.
to my sew along to make this amazing Wear Lemonade Simona blouse. My version is made from the most amazing retro Liberty of London Tarna lawn in this beautiful mustard colour, which I'm absolutely loving at the moment. And what I've done is I've filmed sewing this step by step so it can help you to give it a go yourself as well, because I know some people find the Wear Lemonade patterns a little bit difficult because the patterns are primarily printed in French, although this one does have some English instructions as well. But the Wear Lemonade help videos that are out there are in French as well. So although they are super useful, if you need real high level detail, you might not get that from the videos that are out there. I'd love you to join me. I'd love to know how you're getting along. I've broke it up into lots of bite-size videos, so you can just pick and choose the ones that you need help with, or you can watch it all the way through from start till end. So happy sewing. Do let me know what fabric you're going to use, and I'll see you in the next video.
All my dreams are coming, all my dreams are humming.
Okay, so in this first video, what I'm going to be showing you how to do is stay stitching. It doesn't tell you about stay stitching in the instructions in the pattern, and that's probably because it's a given that you need to do that every time you're sewing necks and armholes anyway, but just in case you are an absolute beginner and you're trying to work from this pattern, do watch this video where I'll talk you through how important it is to stay stitch and exactly how you do that too. So I'll be stay stitching the neckline and the armholes, just to make sure they don't get pulled totally out of shape as you are manipulating the fabric as you're sewing. So do watch on, and I'll see you in the next video. Okay, so the first step that I'm going to follow on the Wear Lemonade Simona blouse is stay stitching. Now, it actually doesn't say anything about stay stitching in the instructions, but it's a given that you should always stay stitch on any project that you are sewing, because if you don't stay stitch, if I'm honest, I've only made that mistake once where I didn't bother with stay stitching. And I've only ever made the mistake once because it resulted in the neckline being all gapey and all out of shape, so I'd never skip that step again. So I'm just going to show you which pattern pieces that I'm going to stay stitch. The first one is the back yoke. So this has a neckline. So what I've done here is I've folded it in half to find the centre point, and I've just put a pin in there, you can see that there. And then what I'll do here is I will stay stitch from the top of the shoulder down to the centre there, and then I'll stay stitch from the top of that shoulder and meet in the centre there. So it's two separate stay stitch lines on a neckline, going from the shoulder downwards into the centre. I will show you at the sewing machine how I sew the stay stitch line, but it's generally a smaller stitch than you would normally work with, and it's half the seam allowance. The seam allowance on this top is 1 centimetre, so I'll be sewing the stay stitch at 1/2 centimetre. So that's the first piece. I'll stay stitch the neck. The next is the back piece, which attaches onto the yoke, and I'll stay stitch this at the armholes. So for armhole stay stitching, you just start from the top and do a line all the way down. So I'll do it on that side, and I'll do the same on that side. and then I've got the two front shirt pieces. So because this is split in two, it isn't like the back where it's a continuous line. On the neck, I'll start at the shoulder and just go down to there. The same on this side, start at the shoulder and go down to the centre. And I'll also stay stitch the armholes, so start at the top and go down to the bottom, and the same on the other side. So don't skip stay stitching, it is really important. It does ensure that the armholes and the necklines don't stretch out of shape, and it doesn't take very long to do. It only takes a few minutes, so it's well worth it. So I'll just move over to the sewing machine and I'll show you how I stitch them. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to do the stay stitching at the sewing machine. What I'm going to be doing here is the back yoke. So this is the one where I'm going to sew from the top of the shoulder to the centre point that I've marked with the pin, and then the same on the other side. I have put a new needle in my sewing machine. I'd always recommend that, especially when you're sewing with tarn alone, because it's so tightly woven. You really do need a nice new sharp needle. The needles that I find that work really well with tarn alone is the Genome blue tip needles. So they've got a blue tip on the end, that's why they're called that, but I find these needles work really well with tarn alone. Okay, so the seam allowance on this pattern is 1 centimetre, so your stay stitching is normally sewn at half of the size of the seam allowance, so half a centimetre is what I'm going to sew. So there's the half a centimetre line on my sewing plate. And I'm using a straight stitch on the machine, but I'm going to make the stitch length a little bit smaller than what it is normally. The standard straight stitch on my machine is 2.2 in length, and I'm going to make that 1.8. Now, because you are working on quite lightweight fabric and you're sewing quite close to the edge, what you can find happens sometimes is your sewing machine pulls the fabric down into the feed dogs, especially at the start. So I don't start right on the very edge, I'm just in slightly from the shoulder, because what I am going to do is do a back stitch anyway. And what I'd also recommend is hold on to the threads which are running at the back of the machine, so both the bobbin and the main thread, and pull backwards when you're first sewing, because that will help to ensure that the fabric doesn't get sucked in. So I'm just going to do a back stitch. Now, I'm not sure if you've watched any of my other videos, but my biggest tip when you're sewing is don't watch the needle. If you watch the needle, you'll find you'll go off track and it'll go wobbly. I always just look at whether the fabric is staying lined up with whichever guide I'm working on my sewing plate. So here, I'm just watching the fabric to make sure that it stays lined up to that dash there. I'm just going to sew to where the pin is, but I'll just remove it and then I'll just do a back stitch, pull that out, snip off the threads, and then I'm going to start from the shoulder to the centre on the other side and just do exactly the same. So I'm pulling the threads at the back at the start, do a back stitch, and stop at the centre. Back stitch again and snip off the threads. So you can see there is a stitch line now which runs along the top, but what you can see is it stops that from getting pulled out of shape, so I can pull it now and it doesn't get pulled out of shape, so it just helps to ensure that your top doesn't lose its shape as you are sewing it. For example, if you look at this sleeve here, I won't pull it too hard because I don't want to pull it out of shape, but it's really bendy. I'm not using any pressure at all there, and it could very easily bend out of shape. So I'll just show you how to do this on one sleeve, and then I think you'll get the idea for the rest.
All my dreams are coming, all my dreams are humming, all my dreams are
Threads.
coming true.
And then you can see that's got much less stretch in it then. And that's it, that's how you stay stitch.